Fox 5 investigation that will blow you away inside the underground of Raves. Next.
Wednesday, May 5th, 1999. Plus, does too much pornography turn people into criminals? Meet people who say it does. Then, pulsating music, illegal drugs, even sex at a popular DC nightclub. And wait till you see who's watching.
Fox 5's 10 o'clock news starts now.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Landis.
And I'm Tracy Neal. Many people say they just underway music and subtle sex. It's part of the youth culture club scene, and what we caught on camera may shock you, especially when you find out who's watching. Fox 5's Elizabeth Leamy investigates the DC rave scene.
And how much rain for...
Right now, late evening by most people's standards, but in one corner of town, the party has just barely begun.
We are talking about the rave scene, and if you're over 25, the story may be a revelation to you. Raves are defined by mesmerizing music, designer drugs, and subtle sex.
Fox 5's Elizabeth Leamy went undercover to show us. Elizabeth, this is the story everyone's been talking about. What'd you find out?
More than we bargained for, that's what. At the rave we attended, I was offered half a dozen illegal substances. We saw money changing hands, people doing drugs. We watched a teenager carried out of the club unconscious. And here's the stunning part. DC cops were watching too. Or were they? In the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, late at night, there's a seedy section of Southeast where behind these walls, it's time. Time to rave, time to roll.
Are you rolling? I am rolling my ass off.
Costumed couples whirl and writhe to throbbing music. An 18-year-old girl sits in a corner in a pool of vomit. A bare-chested teenager introduces himself as Jungle Boy. Young people stroke each other with lazy hands and vacant eyes. This is Buzz. Buzz is the after-hours rave party held every Friday night at a club called Nation, formerly the Capitol Ballroom. Teens and 20-somethings line up for hours to get in and get it on.
Like I said, it's just upbeat, you know, party, you know.
A lot of people doing it, yeah. It's great.
E stands for ecstasy, the rave crowd's defining drug. It's not exactly hard to get drugs past the bouncers here at Buzz. One night as we watched, a young raver just stepped out of line for a second, stuck something in his shoe. Moments later, he was in and ready to roll. When we went to Buzz, 3 times out of 4, nobody patted us down. Half the time, they didn't even check our bag. Security was spotty. Listen to this Buzz bouncer.
Oh, believe me, it's very wild. Very. We do what we have to do. We let things go sometimes, you know.
We know. We were offered marijuana, methamphetamine, ketamine, and of course, ecstasy. 3 different kinds. The dealers caught us as we walked through the crowd, peddling their wares casually.
There's a lot of things going around tonight. There's elephants, there's diamonds, there's...
What are diamonds? This is totally different lingo.
It's different types of E.
Sources say you can buy acid and coke here, too. Discarded pills and powders litter the tabletops. We said no, but plenty of people said yes. This antsy 18-year-old said he was flying on methamphetamine. Here's another guy snorting some white powder. Could be coke, could be anything. The pot smokers were easy to spot and to smell. But it's ecstasy that's everywhere. $25 a dose. E for ecstasy. E for evidence, all around us. For one thing, people kept talking about rolling. That's rave speak for doing ecstasy.
Who's rolling?
And then there's E for expert, like this self-proclaimed ecstasy veteran.
There's a lot of things that play a factor in rolling.
Like what?
Liquid, fluids, no food, people, music.
Ravers are a young crowd, but why the pacifiers?
Or something like that.
Turns out ecstasy makes you grind your teeth. That could also be why strangers kept asking us for gum. Ecstasy also dehydrates you, a frustrating fact for Buzz bartenders.
I wastewater, and I understand because I used to do drugs.
Many ecstasy users like to inhale Vicks vapor to enhance their high. They blow it into each other's eyes, noses, and mouths.
You don't eat.
Some ravers smear Vicks inside surgical masks and breathe it all night. Drug experts say the main ingredient is a stimulant related to methamphetamine.
Feels so cool.
Apparently, what things feel like is a big part of the ecstasy experience. That's why ravers rock in each other's arms, crack their backs with bizarre contortions. Some bring vibrating massagers to buzz. Others do it the old-fashioned way.
The reason I'm touching you is because it feels good. It's like tingly.
This guy insisted on stroking our producer's shoulders because it made his hands feel good. It's a strange sensory world.
Oh, it's the best feeling you'll ever feel.
Occasionally, that feeling turns sexual. Here, a young woman is fondling her boyfriend sexually while he leans up against the wall. They finish while the music throbs on. Some say ravers are the hippies of the 90s. They even have a motto: peace, love, unity, and respect. There's no question Buzz has a friendly, mellow atmosphere.
You don't ever see any fights. You don't ever see anybody getting rude. You don't ever see anybody getting disrespectful to anybody.
Rave regulars insist the scene's not about drugs, but about music. To an outsider, the thumping techno is one big blur. But there are real fans here.
This is my music. The music's fantastic.
The diehards dance, but lots of ravers don't. Take a look at the fringes of the club. We saw plenty of people who needed to sleep something off. We stood around this guy for 15 minutes. He never moved. On our third trip to Buzz, some teenagers carried a friend out this door. She was unconscious. They splashed water on her face. They slapped her face. No dice. This teen was out cold. So in 4 Fridays at Buzz, we saw people dealing drugs, doing drugs, and overdoing drugs. And we weren't the only ones watching. Off-duty D.C. cops provide security at Buzz. Trouble is, they camp out by the back door, missing much of the drug activity that happens in far-flung corners of the club. Officers say they rarely venture deep inside unless Buzz staffers ask them to.
Well, I can if I want, but I don't. Because they have security in here.
But some signs of what goes on here are right under the officers' noses. Ravers inhale Vicks where police can see them. They wear pacifiers and talk openly about ecstasy and its effects.
You grind your jaw.
Oh, I heard
that. Feels really good.
Remember the unconscious girl carried out by her friends? A D.C. officer named William A. Chapman saw the whole thing. But he didn't ask questions or offer assistance. We recorded his blasé reaction to the scene.
What happened to that girl?
Nah, they took her home.
What was wrong with her?
Probably a little too much ecstasy and a little too much drinking.
Metropolitan police officers have full arrest powers even when they're off duty. Nevertheless, respect for authority is badly eroded here. We asked several ravers if they worry the cops will crack down when they're doing drugs.
Oh, don't worry about it.
There are cops right outside the bathroom. Doesn't matter? Well,
Perhaps the reason ravers are so comfortable with the cops is because these cops are cozy with them. This police officer let a rave regular drape her arms around him. Here's a woman touching Chapman's chest. We saw a cop buy flowers for some women. And then we saw this. His name is Officer Mark Nasser. We'll call her Irene. They met here at the club. We have no way of knowing whether Irene is an ecstasy user, but we do know she indulges in the rituals associated with the drug. She gives and receives Vicks hits. She wears a pacifier. She even asked me if I was rolling. The night we decided to ask Officer Nasser about his actions, his schedule had changed and he was on duty. He was assigned to patrol the streets of D.C., but we saw him inside Buzz with Irene. Later, we found Nasser outside the club sitting in his patrol car, once again with Irene.
And I'm wondering if you can tell me a good explanation for why you have been here making out at the club while there are kids in every corner doing all sorts of drugs.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have it on tape.
Off-camera, Officer Nasser told us he hangs out with Irene because she gives him information about crimes at the club. Nasser estimates he makes 1 or 2 arrests at Buzz each Friday. We tried to confirm that, but the Metropolitan Police Department said it couldn't provide arrest records.
Just one more thing that I don't understand.
I have nothing else to
The
say.
drug use in here is rampant. Why is it you all sit by the door and don't go in there and do something?
Nasser and a detective named Michael F. Murphy told us they haven't had any training to recognize the signs of drug use. But the Metropolitan Police Academy has provided drug identification classes for years. Besides, all you have to do is ask, like Detective Murphy did here.
Apparently, with some of these drugs, like ecstasy, what is the pacifiers for again?
So it's hard to picture how police officers working security at Buzz could miss the drug activity here. And that brings up a question about conflict of interest. Should police officers be enforcing the law or looking out for the interests of their outside employers? We posed that question to Chief Charles Ramsey.
The teenagers at this club told us they are not the least bit concerned that those cops are there while they're doing drugs. What do you have to say to that?
Well, that's something that I'm concerned about, too. Any illegal activity that takes place in the presence of a police officer ought to be dealt with, period. Anything less than that's just unacceptable.
Ramsey has been lobbying the city council to reform his department's moonlighting law ever since he got to town. He says police officers should not work at establishments that sell alcohol because those establishments tend to attract trouble.
The fact that you're even there, the fact that you're in uniform, presents a picture to the public that is one that I don't like.
Ramsey says he will launch an internal investigation of the officers and look into whether Nation should lose its license. We tried to talk to the manager of Buzz at a business he owns in Georgetown.
Could I write him a note and leave my card for him?
Sure. We got no response. The owner of Nation, the club itself, failed to return our calls too. We'll keep trying. So for now, D.C. officers are allowed to work here. And by their inaction, those officers are allowing young people to do drugs here. It's 4 a.m. The night is young, and the rave rolls on. Sales are good for the guy who sells glow sticks. The last DJ comes on and spins some new sounds. A guy in the girls' bathroom swallows something and reacts with a shudder. Young people still stroke each other with lazy hands and vacant eyes. This is Buzz. There's one final revelation that's bigger than Buzz, bigger than the cops who work there. As you heard, ecstasy is the rave scene's delirious drug of choice. And guess what? Technically, it is not illegal to use ecstasy here in Washington, D.C. Due to a typo in the early 90s, the D.C. government never got around to outlawing MDMA, the most popular and potent form of ecstasy. When D.C. staffers wrote the law, they accidentally listed one drug twice and didn't list MDMA at all. That makes Washington the only jurisdiction in the entire country that has not outlawed this drug, even though it's killed at least 10 people nationwide. MDMA is federally outlawed, but narcotics cops say the federal courts are only interested in cases involving 250 grams or more. And to give you an idea, Mike and Tracy, a packet of sugar is about 1 gram. So that is a big bundle of drugs. And you can sort of understand why D.C. police officers are blasé about making ecstasy arrests, because unless it is a huge case, it goes nowhere.
Let's go back to the business about the typo. If that happened in the early 90s, are they planning on doing something about it now?
Believe it or not, the problem just came to their attention about 2 months ago. Now staffers say they are working on it, but because of the bureaucratic process, it will take another several months.
What about moonlighting? That's an issue that's come up before, talking about D.C. police. City Council is set to talk about reforming it, right?
There is a bill before the council, but actually it is not on the schedule. Chief Ramsey is pushing it, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, we'll look for an update on this.
Interesting. Thanks very much,
You will get
Elizabeth.
an update.
All right.
In a late development, by the way, Chief Ramsey has agreed to appear on Fox Morning News tomorrow to talk about Elizabeth's report and what action he may take in this matter.